This is our actual pregnancy stack that we just used. Our baby is huge, extremely healthy, thank God. Good morning, friends. Today, I will tell you every part of the supplement stack that I designed for my pregnant wife. But before I do, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, like the video, and comment on the video for the sake of the algorithm. Now let's get started. Some of the subscribers have been asking what my wife took during her pregnancy, and some have been asking whether she took a prenatal multivitamin or something like that. But the reason actually I brought up the subject today is because about just over a week ago, I came across a news article. Evie Toombs, a star show jumper, won a lawsuit against her mother's general practitioner on the basis that the general practitioner did not inform her mother that the mother should supplement with folic acid, a B vitamin. And because he didn't inform the mother, the child who won the lawsuit was born with neural tube defects, particularly a disease called LMM, which has caused her to progressively need a wheelchair more and more in her lifetime, be unable to control her bladder, and so on. So this news article brings to the forefront the importance of nutrition during pregnancy. Something that in the US we have to consider a little bit less because we have so many fortified foods like fortified grains, also in Canada. But in this video I want to tell you how I helped my wife supplement for her pregnancy. And why I think I'm in a particularly good position to discuss this is because my child was born with unusual health. So she is constantly at the highest developmental level for her age. She's now 4 months old. She was born 9.75 pounds large. She was born in the 99 percentile for height, for head circumference, and for body weight. Well, one of them was like 95. The other two were 99, if I remember correctly. But they have remained in the 99 percentile until very recently, where one of them fell to 85%. I believe it's her weight, but her height is still on the 99 percentile, and her head circumference, which is very important, is in the 99 percentile. She's as large as a 6-month-old average boy, essentially. Now, some of you who have not researched the subject may think, hey, the size of the baby isn't so much associated with the size of the adult. For example, there's this famous British boxer Tyson Fury, who's a giant, and he was born very undersized. That does happen sometimes, and the size of the baby isn't always very much associated with the height later in life. However, the size of the baby is a very robust indicator of the health of the baby. And in my case, my baby is extremely healthy, and I really believe a lot of it had to do with supplementation. And the reason why also I can say that is because I was not born large at all. I was born small, and my wife was also born small. So usually you go by family trees in terms of expectation of the size of the baby. So we really believe that our nutrition and supplementation during the pregnancy had a serious effect on the baby's health. Studies of how diet affects the outcomes in children really began with people studying how famines in World War II affected future generations. In particular, I'd like to draw your attention to the Dutch and Russian famines during World War II. The Dutch famine, which lasted between 1944 to 1945 and covered 6 months of the winter, affected pregnant women in their weights, reducing their weight by about 2.5 kg on average, and then having an impact on the children, reducing their birth weight by about 300 grams on average. It also increased mortality of newborns by a factor of 6 and predisposed those newborns to diabetes, hypertension, basically the metabolic syndrome later in life. Thought to be, by the way, through epigenetic mechanisms because it also affected their grandchildren later on. On the other hand, the Russian famine lasted between 1941 to 1943. Over a 6-month period during that time, a quarter of babies died during the gestation. In addition, the babies on average were born over 500 grams less than they were before. So starving is obviously bad for babies, that's for sure. But what about supplementing normal diets, high-calorie diets, with certain macros or supplements? Well, I'm going to take you through evidence-based supplementation for pregnancies. And I'm going to talk about exactly what my wife did. I'm just not going to go through every milligram and dosing thing here because it will be too long, okay? Because I want to be fully comprehensive. To begin, we supplemented with whey protein. And I think the best way to introduce this is this subject called balanced energy protein diets, which have been used as interventions for pregnant women around the world to better the health of their babies. What this diet does is ensure you get about 20% of your calories, total caloric consumption, from protein, and limited there, because if it is more than 20%, women sometimes get certain deficiencies of nutrients, which they wouldn't have gotten if they ate less calorically dense foods like vegetables and fruits. So for this reason, we weren't so focused on eating a lot of meat during the pregnancy. My wife did eat red meat every day, but she supplemented with whey protein 3 or 4 times a day to consume a total of 200 grams just from whey protein. This allowed her to eat more calories from diverse kinds of foods, thereby giving her more nutrients and more signaling phytochemicals. That's really important because we did not supplement with healthful herbs. Hormetic supplements like turmeric and green tea extract cause some damage to the body. For example, they're a little bit liver toxic, but in the end cause a net benefit in our bodies because we've adapted to them. But this is for adults. I did not want to run any risks with my children. My wife didn't supplement with berberine or ginkgo biloba or any of these kind of things that could be potentially harmful. So, because of that reason, it was very important to rely on salads and fruits and vegetables to get all of her nutrients and requirements. In studies, increasing pregnant mothers' protein consumption from lower amounts to up to 20% increases the baby's height by up to 6 millimeters in average studies and increases the baby's weight by over 300 grams in some studies. Of course, as you guys know, protein is a building block for development, but it's also a signaling molecule. In particular, leucine potently signals to the body to increase IGF-1 signaling and upregulate mTOR. That's why I was so fond of supplementing with whey protein for my wife, although we are usually on a low protein diet. During the pregnancy, she supplemented with a lot of protein, and I believe that was the main supplement that affected the health and size of my child. I really attribute it mainly to the whey protein. As we usually do, my wife consumed 30 grams of chicken liver pate without any bad ingredients every day, which covered a bit more of her iron that she wouldn't get from red meat, covered some copper, vitamin A, active vitamin A, and so on. So I'm assuming with the rest of these supplements that you have a whey protein and you're eating liver. Now moving on. There's a lot of evidence to support choline supplementation in pregnant mothers. There seems to be a dose-dependent effect on choline consumption in mothers and cognitive behavior later in life for the children, showing that choline consumption improves the intelligence and cognition of the children, essentially. We supplemented with both phosphatidylcholine and CDP-choline because phosphatidylcholine is in a lipophilic format already, and it gets metabolized a little bit differently than CDP-choline, which is in a hydrophilic format. We also supplemented with large amounts of EPA and DHA from the best sources. Those are fish oil. But I just want to warn you about something. If the mother is a bit predisposed toward anemia or low blood pressure or bleeding issues, you might not be able to get to the doses that we used, which are much higher doses. But supplementing with EPA and DHA is highly evidenced. A recent meta-analysis found that it was associated with birth weight. We also supplemented with 2 forms of Coenzyme Q10, that's ubiquinol and MitoQ. Supplementation with Coenzyme Q10 is associated with less incidence of gestational hypertension, which is called preeclampsia. Vitamin D supplementation is also highly evidenced. Vitamin D supplementation that's less than 2,000 units per day is associated with less fatalities among offspring, although higher doses than 2,000 units per day are not. Although in general, vitamin D supplementation is associated with less incidence of babies born small for gestation age. Next, vitamin B9, folic acid. Folic acid is fortified into some of our grains in the United States and in Canada, so many of you have sufficient folate levels. However, this is one of the first nutritional requirements that was discovered to be important in pregnancy. From the 1960s, they noted that pregnant mothers were more likely to have anemia and other health problems if they didn't have sufficient folate status. Folate is necessary for DNA synthesis and for the methylation cycle. So if your wife or if you have particularly poor polymorphisms for methylation, this can be even more important. Note, however, that you cannot supplement highly with folic acid without supplementing with B12 because that can be dangerous for pregnant mothers as well and have adverse outcomes. Next, vitamin B12. B12 deficiency is linearly associated with preterm births, and B12 status is associated with, again, that preeclampsia, the hypertension or high blood pressure in pregnant mothers. Although my wife got enough B12 from her liver, we also supplemented with methyl B12 as a supplement. Next, vitamin A. Broad spectrum vitamin A's are not backed by research evidence for pregnant mothers. However, certain vitamin A's are. So for example, we supplemented with lutein. Lutein supplementation is associated with better health outcomes among children. There are studies that show that pregnant mothers have lower oxidative stress levels when they supplement with lutein, and the same for the children. In fact, there's a current trial investigating supplementation of lutein and zeaxanthin in pregnant mothers. That's recent. I think it's still ongoing. We also supplemented with lycopene, which is evidence-backed. It reduces limitations on intrauterine growth within the mother. And finally, astaxanthin. Astaxanthin has the lowest evidence to support its supplementation, but in rodent studies, it lowers the likelihood of rodent mothers developing gestational diabetes through lowering oxidative stress. It can't likely be harmful, so I included it. What about other vitamins? Well, first of all, my wife also consumed a full spectrum B vitamin supplement. The reason why is because of a deficiency potentially in B2 from her diet or so on. I wanted to make sure she had all the B vitamins. As for the vitamin E complex, its use is not supported in pregnant mothers, and it could have some risks because it modulates immune activity. For example, even supplementing with gamma tocopherols can have some unexpected risks. So for this reason, we stayed away from vitamin E supplementation entirely. Zinc supplementation in pregnant mothers is also evidence-backed. A meta-analysis found a 14% reduction in preterm births, as well as an improvement in birth weight, but in underweight mothers. By the way, we didn't supplement as heavily with zinc as I supplement with. So my wife was consuming about half what I consume. And the reason why is because supplementing a little bit too highly could have other effects on mineral retention. I didn't want to intervene too strongly on the natural biological processes in the mother. As for iodine supplementation, a systematic review and meta-analysis found that even in populations that are only mildly deficient in iodine supplementation in mothers improved cognitive ability in school-aged children later on. So we supplemented with iodine as well because we don't use much iodized salt, and my wife wasn't consuming too much salt when she was pregnant in general. We also supplemented with calcium because when you take calcium with protein, it alters calcium metabolism. A meta-analysis found that calcium supplementation reduced the risk for preterm births, reduced mortality for the child, and reduced the likelihood of the mother developing hypertension while pregnant. We also supplemented with selenium, even though you guys know that I don't personally supplement with it, because there is some evidence that it may reduce the risk of, again, the hypertension in pregnant mothers. By the way, the hypertension in pregnant mothers, it's not that we're particularly worried about hypertension, it's also a proxy for general ill health in the mother and can damage seriously the baby's health. Before we leave the subject of minerals, I wanted to comment on magnesium and iron. So iron supplementation is highly evidenced, but my wife was consuming quite a bit of iron because of her consumption of liver and meat and so on. Low iron levels are associated with anemia, while high iron levels are associated with gestational diabetes. So you don't want to have too much iron, which is why we didn't supplement with it. On the other hand, supplementing with magnesium is not evidence-backed, and we did not supplement with magnesium for my wife. Finally, I'll quickly mention the other things that we did. One was my wife used my anti-inflammatory protocol. That's from the first supplement video I did a few days ago. You'll see that I take a few supplements on an empty stomach 3 times a day. My wife did exactly that, took the same supplements, actually in the same doses, except she also took Tadka, which I also take 500 milligrams of, but didn't mention in that video. Now, probiotic supplementation is also evidence-backed in pregnant mothers. So for example, supplementing with lactobacilli reduces the incidence of atopic eczema in children later on. I'm talking about supplementing the mother. And supplementing the mother with probiotics in general improves glucose control during pregnancy, which is important. By the way, I'm generally going to leave recommendations for brands in a comment that I'll pin below, but the comment will probably come up a couple of hours after this video comes out, so just check back if you don't see it. And the reason why I'm doing that in particular here is because you really don't want products that are not reliable, because your wife may end up consuming arsenic or cadmium or other heavy metals that are found in these supplements sometimes. And moreover, you need to know that the supplement actually has what it says it has, and whatever it has isn't, for example, oxidized or damaged and so on. For a pregnant mother, you really have to pay attention to this, so I'll leave some brand recommendations below. We're almost done. There are 2 more kinds of supplements we used. We used a garlic supplement, which, by the way, if you want a recommendation on that before the video links come out, you can go to my blog. I have an article on garlic. I also have a video on garlic, and you'll see my supplement recommendations and why I recommend them. And then we also supplemented with digestive enzymes. There isn't that much research to back supplementing with digestive enzymes, but what I've noticed in normal people that supplement digestive enzymes is that their microbiome health improves. So that was the reason why I included it. There was low risk and a potential benefit. By the way, in rodent studies, garlic oil supplementation appears to reduce the risk of hypertension in the offspring, garlic supplementation to the mothers. So that's the entire pregnancy supplementation protocol that we used. The only place I feel that it could have been improved slightly is maybe adding in some amino acids by themselves. Maybe glutamine or glycine may have had some positive effects. I want to mention my wife's diet briefly before we end. The diet had absolutely 0 grains, and the only carbohydrates that were to be found in the diet other than the whey protein supplementation was from whole fruits or vegetables. And what we did was essentially we tried to choose vegetables from the cruciferous family and from the allium family. We eat those, and in general, vegetables are better when they're steamed or fresh rather than cooked, except for tomatoes and carrots, which may be different. And then the rest of the vegetables and fruits we picked according to color. And we also included berries. So among the berries, the most important ones are blueberries, cranberries, American cranberries, although raspberries and blackberries are also quite useful. Strawberries not so useful comparatively. But we supplemented with those, and out of the nuts, we supplemented with also walnuts and pecans. And these are not really supplements, these are our normal diet, but I made sure that she consumed these every day because they had huge impacts on the health of the children. And as I said, we consume liver and red meat as well. So we have salads, liver, red meat, some eggs, and then the berry nut mixture, which we usually eat every day. Anyway, guys, I hope this was helpful for you. This is our actual pregnancy stack that we just used. Our baby is huge, extremely healthy, thank God, and really thank God. Our baby is very healthy, developmentally advanced, and I hope that yours could be too. I really believe that this supplementation protocol and the diet altered the health of my baby. As I mentioned earlier, I think the whey protein had the biggest impact, but I do believe a lot of these supplements had impact, and together they were transformative. Anyway, guys, I'll see you later on this afternoon. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I hope this was helpful.